All right, and hello everybody out there. Welcome to today's episode of Theory Forge, episode 21, Breaking Ground in EQN. And running the show tonight is going to be Velix. Velix, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the wonderful Theory Forge, casting every Friday, 5:30 Pacific. You guys are here, so you probably know that. But we're back again. We've got another awesome guest. We have Malokar, otherwise known as the Adranian, and his evil twin, Arian. Or, that's the good twin, actually. We have the evil twin today, because I was in charge, so Dark Elves rule. Um, But yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I will roll us into our first topic.
Well, I go by a lot of screen names, so Malakar or Arian, either one, or Audranian. It's a lot of my screen names. Been playing EverQuest since 1999. Jumped ship in 2004 to play EQ2, and then I get started in Landmark in last year. So I've been pretty active on the forums. I'm loud. I argue with Diggs a lot, and yeah, I'm excited about EQN.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say everybody here right now is pretty excited for EQN. So we've got a good group here today. But yeah, so our topics today, we kind of, rolling back in. The new year's kind of starting to pick up. The development team finally came back in a couple weeks ago. They've got some stuff together, so they are rolling into their new workshop, which as of yesterday for Landmark, they announced it won't be a race workshop. This time it's going to be something different. And I actually wrote an article on EQ Hammer about it because I think it's pretty significant. We're moving from, doing some more ambiguous and vague type, race architecture workshops to doing something that's like literally going to be in the game. They might use these modular pieces that players construct over this process to actually build the in-game version of Kinos. So it's
Kino?
I think it's Kinos.
Kinos.
Canis.
So
Like a
I mean
keynote.
it's gonna be I think a big change, because that's gonna be, I mean, it won't be a huge change, but for anybody that's looking forward to EverQuest Next and seeing the new Norath, this is like, the actual first part of the world come to life. Because what we've seen in the Karen and Ogre and Dark Elf workshops, yeah, it's the architecture that we're going to see, coming to life in EverQuest Next, but it's not the actual, an actual city itself like Kinos is. So this is what I'm excited. I'm excited for this kind of stuff to finally start happening. I was excited for what was coming out of the workshop, and this is like, finally where we're getting at. So for I guess we'll start off with Malakar and kind of work our way around here. But what does everybody think about this new workshop show? Like, what do you think? What are you expecting to see different than you've seen in previous workshop shows? And what do you hope to get as far as Kinos goes as a city builder starting area from this workshop?
I think the weird place that we're starting right now, because Kinos, when we enter it, as far as we know, it's going to be a tent city. So we're looking, possibly, 2, 3, 4 months down the way at what it's going to look like. And we're working back from there. We're saying, okay, what's the, forget what the terminology she uses. What's the style? What's the architectural feel of the city? And defining that kind of style guide. We're not defining like what the city is actually going to look like or what the pieces are going to look like, but we're looking at the holistic city, and that's somewhere that we really haven't been able to do before. We're actually looking at an actual location in Norath and saying, what do we want it to look like 3, 4, 6 months down the road after EQN launches?
One thing to note too, they mentioned it yesterday on the workshop show that they've actually made some changes. They mentioned a lot of different changes, but one thing in specific that I just thought of when you were talking is they do want to move away from Kinos isn't going to be a tent city when we first go in now. They said they want it to be more established. So it's going to have some stone structures and some wood, but they said they don't want to have, like wood palisade. It's actually going to have stone walls even from day one. So that was one change that they mentioned on the workshop show, but that was the only big one as far as the build goes. Other than the Dark Elves not being a part of it anymore.
Yeah.
It will have been around for 10 to 20 years, I think they said. Somewhere around there.
Is it my turn?
I'm going to... Go ahead.
Yeah, it goes to Diggs.
Sorry, I need to look over here for the order. All right, my turn. It's a neat concept. I think it'll end up looking really good now that the upper class of builders that we have, like the more experienced builders, are fantastic now. Actually, have exceeded what my expectations of where building would get to with the tools improving and people getting better. But I don't know if people know this, but I'm 100% gnome enchanter, and I don't see no gnome, and that's just not cool with me. Like, I know Velix is all dark elf all the way. I don't want to live in this crap city. I want my clockwork caves, and I want my mystical forges. I want all kinds of. I want gnome stuff, and that. So it.
But they don't know him yet.
I am excited that we're doing this, but I am. I just still haven't seen the one thing that'll make me really excited. When they say we're doing gnomes, it's all Akanon. Let's do this. And, I'll log in. I will find some people that have honed their building skills, and I will help, and I will work. I will be part of a team, and I will do that. But I like pictures. They're pretty. Good.
If they have a steampunk competition in Landmark, you'll do that?
Only if it's wrapped in the Norathian gnome framework. I don't necessarily want to be doing a best reproduction of the movie Kashern or something like that.
That would be kind of interesting. Oh, man.
Next.
I guess.
What about you, Diggs?
Yeah. Diggs.
Or am I don't know. Our order's all messed up. I'm just whoever's feeling it.
If we're doing it, no, there's no order. I think it's fascinating that Zog is he doesn't care whether or not gnomes will be around helping out. It just has to be clockwork, and we know there's not going to be clockwork stuff in Kinos, they said. I'm wondering if I'm going to be interested in trying to build something, and I think one of the things that's making me somewhat interested is that it's smaller size, so we're talking about modules instead of huge creations, and limited to one claim, and maybe only pieces of a structure instead of a whole structure. So maybe they only want to see a roof instead of a whole tower. Maybe I'd be interested in doing a cross section of a structure. It's just running through my head. But I still feel like I need more guidance, more guidance from the art direction. And I'm thinking kind of that I want to do individual housing, or just an apartment, or something smaller than a full-blown tower. But we'll see. I want to see more, and it would be nice to. It would also be nice to know what all 8 races are going to be.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you brought up the more direction, because one unique thing again about this workshop is they chose to kind of not give us a whole lot of concept art right out the gate. They kind of, it's almost like they want this first week for us to kind of help develop the concept art and then move forward from there. So it's going to be interesting. I think we probably won't see, like, I'm sure people will start building immediately, but I bet the majority of builders probably won't even start for another week or possibly 2 weeks, depending on how long they stretch out this concept art, I don't know, idea process that they're doing. So that's just another note of difference for this workshop. So for anybody out there that has like art talents, you know, using Photoshop, doing concept art and stuff like that, now is a really good time to, you know, participate and let your voice be heard too.
Something, if I can interject here, something interesting to think about is that in every other game, EQ did pretty much all of them. Have we ever played as the Combine Empire? Have we ever really been a part of the Combine? I mean, it's always been a part of the lore, but we've never...
Combine has not been a part of the lore. What do you mean? I don't consider the Combine as part of the lore. They mentioned the Combine before?
I kind of see what you're
EQ
saying.
and EQ2s, yeah. I mean, we the Combine Spires, you know, those were a major part of EQ, and the Combine Empire was also a major part of EQ2. It's this part that's always been hidden and mysterious, and now for the first time we're actually entering the game as that. So Kinos traditionally has been a human city. It's got a long lore going back to where the humans, where the barbarians transitioned to humans. They first Antonius Bale, and that entire line, you know, that grew, right? There's a huge amount of lore with Kinos and the other city where the Erudites went to, and all that stuff that happened on the West Coast. But this is the first time that we're doing it with the Combine, so it's completely different. And we really haven't looked at the Combine as a people, as a race before, and really been involved with that kind of lore.
Huh, never heard of them.
Interesting. So
Anybody else heard? Wait, anybody else heard of the Combine? I did not hear of the Combine.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't like a major focal point because it was this, you know, different era when all the races got along, which, you know, in the EverQuest and EverQuest 2 themes, they really broke the races apart by their alignment, you know, so that type of thing didn't really have a place in either game. I know in EverQuest 2, you know, early on there was only certain starting points, so everybody did get kind of like grouped up in different ways, kind of similar to the Combine, but it still wasn't that full-fledged, you know, historical Combine thing. So I really am interested to see, you know, this new angle on it, on the lore of coming in as this, you know, unified peoples that, you know, have an enemy that's not necessarily other player races, which is, you know, a new dynamic.
I mean, it also plays into the fact that there's not good, neutral, and evil races right off the bat. It's, you know, you are what you are based on your deeds, so it kind of helps to promote that, to have everybody kind of start together like this rather than having a bunch of different starting points. This means everybody is going to be able to work together from the very beginning, assuming Kinos doesn't get, you know, destroyed or taken over, and then we have to, you know, start somewhere entirely different. Which could be possible, you know, later down the road. Rallying calls, definitely.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say this. Like, I'm gonna throw it down right now. If I was writing and I was on the SOE, you know, development team, I would absolutely have at least 3 or 4 different ways that the city of Kinos is obliterated. You know, that's just too good to not use.
Hey, buddy, I'm Carlin with my Lich ship. I've got a whole undead army on this ship, and I'm just going to start a new on this other island. We're going to take over Kinos, hey, buddy.
We had a brief conversation in chat earlier about, like, how much servers will diverge, and when we were able to, on this show, interview Dave Georgeson and Steve Denuser, I asked a couple short questions about that, like how quickly servers would start to diverge and things like that. And they said it might take less than a day for servers to be on completely different paths. Now, I understand that the results of interactions have to be coded in. They're not they're not all the direction that servers go are not going to be procedurally generated, and the lore isn't going to be procedurally generated. I may disagree that the destruction of Kinos is on, it may be in 3 or 4 different paths, but they'll be so deep down the tree and require so many different things to line up correctly for that to happen. It has to be far enough down the line, at least, that we've discovered other cities, that there are real player-driven hubs. The whole point of Kinos for EverQuest Next is it's the noob zone. You know, it may be where you go back to meet up, kind of like the Guild Wars 2 or Guild Wars original like hub city where everybody goes back to, and it's kind of everybody's hub, or at least all of the new players stick around there, and then things develop elsewhere. But you know, it has a real gameplay function. It's not only lore tied. So I think the destruction of Kinos, even though I would love for it to happen, I think that from a mechanical standpoint, it would be really hard to even be talking about that. That sounds like a first major expansion increases the web of possibilities to potentially include them. And maybe no server ever makes it happen. That's part of the beauty of EverQuest Next, that there may be no server that ever satisfies the condition for something. Remember in World of Warcraft when there were some servers that no one had ever killed Onyxia, or no one had ever killed Illidan or whatever, that there were things on these servers that had never happened. There may be in EverQuest Next things that have never happened on any server, yet are within the realm of possibility. And that's mind-boggling.
My dream, and I'm just going to throw it out there because I've said it before. Somehow, some way, early on, players are able to ally with the Black Barrel clan and able to help either make there be a union where, you know, Kinos and the Black Barrel clan are one joint city and they work together peacefully, or maybe the Black Barrel clan takes over and Kinos becomes a null city where humans are welcome, and some other races too.
Rules.
Well, you know,
50 rules.
No, that was actually kind of alluded to yesterday in the stream. Morgard actually said, it was just a quick one line for anybody that caught it, but he was saying, you know, metal will not be abundant in Kinos, and he said that, and then he brought up, the Runny Eye will have it, and he's like, so you're either going to have to set up some kind of alliance or take it by force, take what you need. So it already seems like just out the gate, you know, you're going to have this ability to either, you know, as a group collectively, we're either going to say, you know, hey, we're going to dominate the surrounding area and take what we need, or maybe we can do it more diplomatically, so, and create friends in the bigger world. So I think that is something that we should get to experience, like, literally from day one. So I'm pretty excited about that.
So, I was gonna say I wanted to kind of get my thoughts in on the first question there about the kind of the what we saw in the workshop show and kind of the direction they're going with things. Honestly, I want to see the style more heavily influenced by what the players do, and that we can, you know, really go above and beyond the style guide and help influence what they do to kind of shape and redo the style guide. To be perfectly honest, I don't think that it's impossible to have all of the races that will start when the Combine, you know, gets to Kinos, represented in different areas. They already talked about it a bit, that Karen, for example, would be more involved with the docks and, you know, that part of the area. So I would think, well, ogres and dwarves would probably be more the people working on the stonework, like the major stonework, the walls, the foundations, that sort of stuff. Not necessarily on everything, but the stuff that's got to be really sturdy, the stuff that's got to be really well manufactured, aqueducts and sewage systems as well to make sure they flow right and don't back up or clog anywhere. I'm sure dwarves probably already have that stuff down, so it makes sense that all of the race's styles, it isn't that you're going to see one building that has every race's style in it, unless for some reason that's how they decided to do like one embassy building out of the entire city. But other than that, I would see it being a lot of combination of different races in the areas where they're the strongest and most emphasized in their building and style. Cloth work also, I would think, Karen's. Ogres like cloth, but they're a lot more coarse and rough with it. It's like, yeah, it's cloth, awesome. I imagine they're using like red tinted burlap rather than more like cottons and stuff that the Karens would be using. So
because they don't like soft fabric.
Well, of course not. You've seen their punishment chair. They relax on something that's got spikes that go into your arms. So, of course, dark elves have things that'll chop off your shoulders if you try to stretch while you're at the dinner table.
Yeah,
so.
All ogres are Opus Dei.
So, I think the other thing is I'd like to see not just giving us the style guide for what the end game for Kinos looks like, but I'd actually really like to see what we approach, the stone foundations and the structures that existed, what we're looking at when we arrive, so we can actually build off of that for our styles rather than seeing what a possible completed unit looks like and then trying to move towards or away from that. Because for me, if we're building it up, I'd rather build up from what we have rather than what we might see at the very end. And
Can I throw it down on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's pretty much what I had there. Go for it.
Because, that's a really good point. I've been thinking about this a lot. I haven't compiled a forum post of 3,000 words yet, but there's real-time strategy games that I keep on pointing over to and just keep on thinking about, right? In those games, you build a small city in your area where you build your first spot. I forget what it's called. So as you build that up, players, they set up the different little locations and make sure that there's walkways and stuff like that. You're building up a city, and as you get more and more and more stuff, it gets larger and larger. How is Kinos going to grow in size? And personally, I think we should move towards what is it going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now, as it's finalized, and then work backward from there, and then that way it seems like it grew instead of taking it from where it is right now and building it as it is right now, but not having a direction that it could go.
I think that's part of the reason why.
Rosie's going to handle that.
Well, I think that's part of the reason also too why they want to go with this modular system, because I think they do want that functionality for these cities to increase, in area size as well as just, up. Because a lot of games, they just upgrade the visual appearance. You're like, oh, now your level, now you have stone walls instead of wood, and they don't really actually show a lot of area growth. And I think that's something, World of Warcraft with their garrisons, they did in Draenor. If anybody kind of jumped into that expansion a little bit, your garrison actually got bigger in size and upgraded, and it kind of had this concept. And, I think that was like World of Warcraft's way of saying like, oh, we want to be in this party too. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. The point of this is, this modular system, I see them going to it for a lot of reasons. That one that they, that I just mentioned, the ability to increase in area and, have the pieces in place to where, maybe some of the stuff we build in this modular system, they never use on the initial Kinos. And then as, it expands, we see this new whole, civilized urban district takes over the center, and now all the residential districts move out, or, different ways that it could happen, and new buildings kind of come around that weren't there originally. So, and a lot of that too also could be a functionality of what we choose to do in the world. Maybe we do ally with Runny Eye and create a good friendship, and maybe Runny Eye has like a little quarter in the city that they end up, adding to. So the the modularity of it and the way that the since it's basically the same system as Landmark, the developers will have the ability to edit any location in the world the same way anybody could claim anywhere in Landmark and change it. So I think that's really awesome and a part of the system that probably doesn't get highlighted enough, just because we're focused on all the stuff. What's going to be different about this game? What improvements are they going to make on the things we know? A lot of people we don't really take the time to think about the totally new things that this new tech, allows us to do. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. But yeah, I don't know.
To that point. Oh, go for it, Zog.
You're the guest. Guests always get priority.
No, Velix, you brought up a really good point and something that we don't think about too often, because we're so used to games that there's just one way. Like, everybody has the same storyline. It's a what they call theme park. Everybody's experiences the same thing. With the way that they're developing EQN, with tying it into Landmark, you've got modular systems. So you've got all these people that are creating all these different ideas, right? And normally it would be like, I'm going to pick this, and all the other stuff gets shoved away. You got multiple servers. So now you can say it's going to be this and this on this server, and this on this server, and this on that server, and every single server can have Kinos and be completely different, because you have all these different options that you can tie in. And so you can build up massive cities, and every single server is different, and every single server is a different world, and you've never seen that before.
I actually talked about exactly that on Live Feature Rant. Basically, the idea that we'll have points that we define for. Yeah. This is a furniture point. This could be a furniture or a cooking fire or a bookshelf. We define what could go there, and then when the building, as it's placed in the world, is generated on each server differently, it has those different props and those different features to them. Absolutely, I could definitely see something like that. I kind of think of the modular design of, say, Diablo or Torchlight and those kind of games, the action RPGs, because those will do a lot of that sort of stuff. They'll use the same room, but it'll be decorated 20 different times. Hell, Binding of Isaac even, same sort of thing.
Well, the devs said a while ago that, probably a year ago, that we won't be able to change the layout of Kinos. So the overall layout will be the same as it grows for the most part. And I think we'll be able to do some minor tweaks to it. But I think the overall growth, the difference will be how far did it grow. And the big difference will be how far has the city grown on each server, and possibly what kind of destruction is there. I really wish, what's the name of there's a new game that I saw recently, Medieval Engineers. Has anybody seen that?
Yeah. There's a post on.
Yeah, there's that. I wish that Landmark could get to that level of destruction, actually, where, other people could come in and start doing sieges, and we could go by and say, hey, that wall over there I built up this way, but it kind of got destroyed, so we had to do something different. I think it's a fairly good question about how divergent Kinos can be on each server, barring how far in development it is.
With that,
my big question, my big question has more to do with it's hard for me to understand how the cities are really run, because there's all of this interesting dynamic stuff happening, and player interaction can affect it. And in this world of life of consequences, the idea of having the perpetual king of Kinos, or like the same NPCs in charge, doesn't make that much sense within what else we know about the game. And I haven't heard anything about player-run cities and elections, or like ways in which players can rise to prominence within a faction that already exists or things like that. And that's the kind of thing that I would love to see. I haven't heard anything hinting even close to that. But when we have so many dynamic pieces, so we have destructible terrain, we have the ability to break down and rebuild a house, we have the ability for one group to take over another area and potentially obliterate an entire faction from the game, but the players will... I don't want to seem negative here. I'm just trying to understand how a player fits in, because what we want is for a player to feel just like an NPC in the world. That's why we're here. That's what we're excited about. We want NPCs to feel like players. We want to blur the boundaries of who's real and who's not and exist in that world. But if there's a cap on what a player can do, so where can player interaction really affect them? So Kinos is the place for players. It's the place where players get dropped off. There are NPCs there. There's already faction and story to draw you in. There's a little bit of a newbie quest line or whatever to get you understanding your surroundings and get you going. You've got your row song. Then you're for players. The idea of tricking the NPCs into expanding the city or playing some sort of god game with the surroundings isn't as attractive to me as finding ways to actually rise up within the organization and players being able to make the decisions. I could see Arian here, our guest today, being elected by NPCs to make decisions for, that kind of thing. That he's better at what they do than they are, so he becomes the captain. He becomes the overseer. I don't know how it works in, and I understand that the coding of that is way beyond me.
Yeah, I mean, what I was originally hoping was that there would be ways on each server, and each server would be a little different, that there would be ways for players to somehow vote on which districts are more elven or which districts look more ogreish. Maybe that's materials, or can we vote for different temples to be built in different areas? Like, there's a temple district. Could the players on different servers vote in different gods for the temple to be dedicated to? That's the kind of thing I was hoping that we would get, but it sounds like that's not going to happen, because
Are you familiar?
I don't know. I disagree, because I think, the direction they want to go in is that people will be able to pick factions that they want to ally with and support by, they're going to help those NPCs pursue their goals by getting them the particular resources they're after. So, say there's a sect of the sect of Row, the Seraphim Row. If everybody kind of gravitates toward that one primarily, and they're like, hey, the Row acolytes want this stuff, and they get it, like, it might turn a whole temple into just dominated by the disciples of Row, and you might see the other Seraphs kind of diminish. Like, I see that, with the Storybricks element system that they've described, I see that as being totally possible. I don't know if we'll see, like, physical changes to the actual buildings, but I definitely see the ability for, factions and deities and religions and all these different, basically, organizations. That's the term they use a lot, is all these different organizations pushing each other around, wiping each other out, and they interact in different ways, because some are nations, some are religions, they're all these different types of things. So there's all these overlapping networks, and they're constantly pushing and pulling, and it's almost like you're managing multiple layers depending on how many different, and the weird thing is at some point, you have, it's like in real life, you have some religions, like say the Catholic Church, they actually, at the time of Rome, and possibly, in other times, they actually were a physical presence. They, interfered in national things, and they weren't just in their little religious, bubble. They operated. So if things in EverQuest Next start doing that, like if religions start messing in politics, and you get all this inner, it could be really crazy. It could be really hard to keep track of, and you really just will be pursuing your specific wants and needs, and the allying with the factions you want to, and it could create. And I like that, because you could, it breaks it breaks the routine and the norm. It makes the game unpredictable, because you could be, working for some faction, and then all of a sudden they get a beef with something that you are also allied with, and now you have a conflict of interest, and you have to make a tough decision on your own, because you are pursuing both these things, and all of a sudden now you have to choose. Okay, well, do I still want to, these people hate each other now because of some event that happened. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
So you're saying that there still should be political intrigue that we can do, but what I'm saying is I don't think that's going to impact the look of.
I think it definitely will.
The cities.
Yeah.
The Tropico comes to mind. The idea that as you're trying to play the game, different groups will ask for different things and put different pressures on, and you can be like, okay, you guys want this, I want your support, so I'm gonna do this. Or you could be like, no, I'm gonna defame your leader, assassinate 2 of your people, and get you all fearing for your lives, and go screw, because I'm ruled by force. So, not necessarily that we're going to have that same, macro scale level of power. Actually, now that I talk about it a little bit more, it almost feels like we're going to be a small faction in some sort of a 4X MMO, to be honest.
Are you guys familiar with Twitch plays Pokemon?
Been talking about forever. This correlation between real-time strategy games and the engine of EverQuest Next. I can't disagree, but I do know that it sucks in Tropico when you don't have that 10K that some foreign leader that you don't want to piss off wants from you right now.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Are you guys familiar with Twitch plays Pokemon? So the story is, for those viewers who aren't familiar with it, basically, imagine Pokemon and imagine a billion people all trying to figure out what button to press. And it accepts whatever response, right? There's a whole lot of more to the story to it than that, but that's not, I don't think that's the direction that they're going to try and build Kinos in. But to the Diggs' point, with voting and stuff like that, we'll vote by our actions. Like the economy, we vote by our dollars. In EQ Next, we'll vote by our actions. So the more influence that a certain faction has, then the more that faction will grow. Now, in EQ2 lore,
it's not going to change that's not going to change the way.
Yeah, let me show how it could
look.
Let me show how it could. So in EQ2, you have 5 factions that are in the city of Kinos. Now this isn't EQN lore; it's not even close to it. But just as an idea, there's the Celestial Watch, which is the Guild of Priests. There's a Concordium, which is the Guild of Mages. There's the Kinos Guard, which is the Guild of Militia. Tunarian Alliance is the Scouts Guild, and then there's the Ironforge Exchange, which is the Crafters Guild. So those 5 different groups are all fighting with each other, right? Well, what if you had something along the lines of design structures, so you had the city as a whole, and it had plots and different areas where things could be built. And it's not going to be like this, but the players align with one faction, say the Mages Guild. It's not going to be a Mages Guild, but it's something like that. And that group grows in influence. Well, they're going to need to expand their area. So they're going to build a larger Mages Tower, or they're going to build mage facilities, or whatever they need to make their area bigger. Well, in doing so, they just took over some plots that were supposed to go to, the Priests Guild. Not that the Priests Guild is going to exist, but, they'll expand their area. So that will change the way that the city's set up and the dynamic of the city, so that on one server, you might have this one section which is royalty, and you might have another server that has more of a, different faction that's aligned with it. And that'll change the look of the server. And it's the players who define, okay, this area has this much influence, those NPCs within that faction, they need these things, and because they have more influence over the whole entire faction, they're going to be able to expand. And the other ones don't have that faction, so they're not going to be able to expand.
That's not what the devs. That's not what the devs described in the workshop show, though.
I don't know. I don't disagree with that though, because I think that tech already exists for anybody. Again, I bring up World of Warcraft Draenor because every person's garrison looks different because of the choices they make personally. They want to pursue a different thing, and it changes what plots they pick. And then also you have options to unlock, banners based on your race or based on your class, to where you actually decorate your garrison differently depending on. So I mean, I do think that functionality is out there, and if they choose to pursue it, I think it would be fairly simple for them to do.
They could. I'm saying that's not what they talked about in the workshop show. They were like, the Karens are going to be responsible for setting up the docks because that's what they like. And
that's racial. That's racial. That's
but
racial.
I'm saying
though.
that the look. Yeah. What I'm talking about specifically is I was hoping that we would be able to vote on, how different
the
areas
racial
look based
identity.
on that.
Yeah. I think it might be, and that's a really good question on racial feel of the architecture. I'm more describing like the purpose of things and the kind of.
The functionality.
Functionality and purpose. We're going to have a lot of stuff. I mean, Kinos is something that people are excited about, very excited about. So I think hopefully Landmark is going to blow up. I'm even thinking about building stuff for it, and I don't build. So, there's people going to be hopefully coming back and trying to build. I mean, Diggs, you were even thinking about building stuff too. So I think that it's a good question.
It seems like when we build, the majority of the Kino structure is going to be fixed, but they did also say that they're going to have give the voxelmancers, the big guys, a chance to design little areas of it. So I think that's going to be a different thing as well, is that different servers may have different pieces from the voxelmancers plotted into certain areas.
Well, I had another topic that I wanted to talk about because, one of the things that totally caught me off guard was, the changes in the lore that, like the last I had heard from, and it was a conversation I got in with Tanelin in Skype and on Twitter and some other people, because I must have missed like that few minutes I got up from the workshop show and didn't see if they talked about it, but from SOE Live, I was under the understanding that the Dark Elves were, met with the Combine on Kunark, and they came with them, which they have chosen to since change. And it kind of makes me wonder now, does that open the door back up to having multiple starting cities? Because, if all the races are arriving, I know that Kinos is going to be the initial starting city, and that the majority of players are going to be there, but how does a Dark Elf fit into that if they are not a part of that? I mean, they may have some lore thing to where, like, hey, the people who choose to play Dark Elves, they go to Kinos for, X reason. But I think the reason that I bring it up now, I know it's, like, not a popular thing, and, it's something that the development team has shot down, but they've also said that they don't know what they're going to do necessarily. It depends on what players want. I know they said that in the past. I think with what we've seen in the workshops and how rapidly we've seen players iterate and build things and create things, and when they're seeing this type of, I don't know if you guys are paying attention to How to Voxel or Bride with the modular system he's been developing the last couple months. I think they're seeing that there's this type of potential where if they do get the pieces in from the players, they could create multiple starting cities relatively easily without having a lot of overhead, and it all depends on what type of, it depends, because they haven't decided on their tutorial system, and if they create a tutorial system that works in different locations to where they can plug in different, NPCs and different story bricks things to have it, I don't know, I think that the door kind of opens back up for that. I know it's not a popular thought, but I thought I would bring it up since, there are a lot of Dark Elf fans here. dark elves don't really fit the theme in Kinos whatsoever. So I kind of wonder what they're going to do with that, and I'm wondering what other people might think they're going to do with that.
It's not going to be multiple starting cities, and it's not going to be multiple tutorial, but you'll still probably be able to get some of what you're asking for from the ancestral homes, because there will be multiple ancestral homes that we can rediscover, but they aren't going to be starting cities.
You know why it doesn't make sense, just real quick, for dark elves to be in Kinos? The reason why it doesn't make sense for dark elves to be in Kinos is that we would just have them build up the cities, just like, all right, use your magic and raise buildings with stone. Done deal. Sog, sorry about that.
I think Sog wants to talk.
Yeah. There's a bigger point to all of this that Velix and I are probably the worst at this because we actually care about what race we want to be, and we relate them to what they were and what they've been alluded to being in the past. But this idea, the concept of EverQuest Next is about making your own path and not having any kind of predisposition based on your past race, because we've all been exiled and we've all been mixed together, and now we're all coming back, and we can all make our own choices, and it's this whole like ambiguous feeling that even though we have this idea of, there's still this like, I remember, I still have this, I like the Karens, like they're looking from above or whatever. It's this weird juxtaposition of, we don't have a designated alignment, yet we still have some racial tendencies as we see in the workshop. So like, once you have different starting cities, and the reason I know that they won't do this is because they went the other way with their other free-to-play games. They said, we don't want more. You can pay to have the option to start at another city if you want, but there will be a designated starting city. But it changes the way that the world is experienced fundamentally. And the idea of the game coming in is, we're all showing up. I don't think that, even from the parts of the lore that I've read and they talk, I'm having trouble putting together the concept of everybody arriving together and working together to build a city and working together to make a home, with this idea of, I'm a dark elf.
Whoever said that they're working together.
What doing here, I don't like. No,
they're working together.
The point of going to Kinos is everybody likes it. It's not that you're a dark elf and you don't like it. You can role play that all you want, but that's not the character that you're actually playing. Like, that can change.
Whoever said that? No, hold on. Let's back up. Whoever said that? Yeah, no. You can't have player agency and then be like, oh, and by the way, you're gonna do this quest line. No. I get off the boat.
Combine is all working together.
You get on a boat and you go to Kinos. Whether that's not a quest line, that's how the game starts.
Sure, but get this, Sog. Think about it this way. Okay, so you're a member of the Combine. You've been hating the Combine for a long damn time because you're an Ixar, and you really should have. Combine forces really should have helped with your stuff back home, but they rejected that, right? So you're on this boat because you have a hope of fixing things, and on the boat you realize that this group of idiots that you've traveled with is going to try and build a city and going to try and they're leaving your home of Kunark behind. So you're like, screw that. So the moment that you get off the boat, you walk away from the city. You turn your back on Kinos. You don't help anything. You're here. Yeah, everybody's trying to set this up. Thanks for the ride, guys. Walk off.
The deep RP minority is interesting. I do agree with that. Velix is raising his hand too.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm gonna like not cut people off for once. I'm like actually gonna. Okay, so this is I'm kind of marrying these ideas and dealing with the grips of only having one starting city. Now I think that Malachar makes some great points here in the player agency argument, but at the same time, everybody else makes good arguments as well. You know, this everybody has to have a reason to be in Kinos. They don't necessarily have to like it because that goes against the core concept of the game, which is, you know, determining your own alignment, determining your own alliances, and pursuing what you want to pursue. So I think that if as long as they give every race a reason to be in Kinos, they don't necessarily all have to have the same reason to be there. And I also think to give races their own identity, you know, with Storybricks presents the option to do a starter tutorial in a way that's never been done before, that I know of. Anyways, I just said that. I don't know if that's true. Sorry, but so what I'm saying here, but you guys maybe you guys can hear this and tell me if it's been done before. You give each race their own starting line within Kinos because, say, and I'll use the Dark Elves as an example because that's what I'm familiar with, and that's kind of the whole reason this was brought up. So say the Dark Elves are a part of Kinos. They didn't arrive with the Combine, but say they hear that the Combine is coming, you know, they heard the forward scouts, so they set up an outpost directly outside the walls of Kinos. And the Dark Elves have an outpost here because they need to have a relationship with this, you know, massive group of people coming to the continent, you know, probably with an army size with them, you know, a lot of people. So they decide to create, you know, to bridge the gap again, you know, and introduce themselves like, hey, you know, we're the Tyr Dal, you know, yeah, it's us, we're kind of messed up looking, you guys probably hate us, and maybe they have this relationship that is like not good. People can choose to strengthen that relationship, or people can choose to take it and bounce, but they're there initially, you know, and that they might do something like that for every race. Maybe the Karen, you know, hang out on the docks, and maybe they're the seafarers and they just ferried everybody over, but they're not as interested in what's going on in Kinos. Maybe they want to travel right away and explore and find their own places.
So far,
I think that,
will players be led? Sorry, the question has more to do with players. Like, we may arrive in Kinos and find that there are a bunch of Karens at the docks, and there are a bunch of you know, dwarves living in like the lower levels of the city, or however it works. But would a compromise to having different starting cities be like, if you're a dwarf and you're getting off the boat, you're met by a dwarf, and you know, the beginning of your life just kind of happens where dwarves are in Kinos. Is that where you're going with this?
But again, the thing
Yeah.
you're missing is that there's one starting city. There's multiple ancestral homes that you can find. You don't have to stay in Kinos if you don't want to. You can head out to the frontier and try and rediscover your ancestral homes. It's just not going to be a starting city.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
there's not going to be a tutorial there.
Yeah, but to answer Sog's question, like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Everybody is starting in Kinos, but you have your ancestral start, you know, in Kinos in relation to your own race is, you know, the first NPCs you talk to, and, you know, from the way Rosong works, maybe as long as you stay, you know, if you keep choosing to talk with the dwarves, that's where your, you know, Rosong is going to populate different things for you. And, you know, if you choose to deviate from that and be like, you know, maybe for some reason my character hates his kind, and you just deviate immediately, you know, it's going to start populating differently as you start building up, you know, however Rosong works. But, yeah, that was kind of my thought, is that, you know, that would be something I would be okay with, basically, is what I'm saying. If we're not going to have starting cities, I understand that, you know, we'll have ancestral homes we can find later, but if we're going to be starting in one place, races have to be given an identity, because if you're going to go to all the trouble to make a game with a return to story, with Storybricks, with a return to the lore, and get you know, decisions and consequences and permanent change to matter, you know, your race has to have an identity, and it has to be established early on. You know, that it can't be something that is just, you know, I don't know what my race is. I mean, because then your character, you know, there's no way to get attached to the story that's happening as it pertains to your character. So that's why I brought it up, because I think that it's a really crucial thing, and it's something that has to be addressed. And I'm sure they, you know, internally, I'm sure they're talking about this a lot, but I just thought it would be a good discussion to have, as people that talk about the game regularly and people, that watch the show and might have these questions. So I thought we should talk about it.
I didn't mean a gameplay tutorial. I meant, like you said, like an RP introduction. That there are going to be people coming into the game that have no experience of Norath and no understanding. And one of the things that is in traditional MMORPGs done average to well, instead of, anywhere from terrible to awesome, anywhere from EQ1 to Age of Conan for starting areas, where EQ1 is the worst and Age of Conan is the best. This introduction to who you are, even if it's the Final Fantasy, little monologue that you read through at the beginning, this way of bringing you into the story and understanding that you have choices, but that's part of teaching who you are, that you are this person, you are entering this world, and getting people to start connecting with the character at the beginning. And people naturally relate to what they choose as their class or their race or whatever as their character creation process. They're designing it with some things in mind, but there still needs to be a little bit of teaching, regardless of the Rose song and regardless of how the world works, I think.
So are you talking about sort of like what ArcAge did, where you kind of have this character create and you choose certain things and it gives you a tailored, video sequence in the beginning based on your character creation choices?
Yeah, and unfortunately, from that point on, ArcAge was terrible. But
well, I won't say. Yeah, I mean it was that. Yeah, I won't go there, but yeah. But I'm talking about specifically like the pre-game experience.
Even in World of Warcraft, when you start out, the first few people that you interact with, because they're right there, tell you about who you are. If you were to start playing the repopulation right now, everybody starts out as a clone. You're all clones, or at least on the one faction that you do pick a faction. But you show up and there's somebody right in front of you to talk to. I know they want to break this mold, but the function of that isn't to create linear progression. The function of that is to create initial immersion into a world and a story. And maybe it can be done in a much better way, and I'd be excited to see that, but I haven't made the connection.
There's two things that you kind of need to do initially. You need to make sure that the player understands how the mechanics work, that they understand the controls, movement, camera angle, what their buttons do, that basic stuff of game control, right? The other thing is the identity. You really need to immerse them as quickly as possible into the story. There's a lot of different ways to handle that. I'm not sure what the best way is. I'm not sure what they're going to choose. Don't know. It's really tough question.
So one thing I want to say real quick, I just took a little quick poll in chat of who's going to be assuming we start in Kinos, who's going to stay in Kinos and who's going to just leave on day one and go off to do other things. And it seems like most people are going to leave and go off and do other things. Baby Cannon said she's going to stay around and foof up things, and I think Noodle Cat said she's just going to figure out whatever and do whatever and not really specifically have a preference on it. But most people, it sounded like they're just going to book it on day one if we start in Kinos. I'm one of them. I'm a wild Karen. I don't need to stay in one place for long.
I don't want Karen.
I plan to stay in Kinos and screw it up.
So you and Baby Cannon are in the same boat there. Okay. Cool deal.
Yeah,
I won't talk to any of you unless maybe an erudite. I might talk to an erudite.
Can I give you guys a vision?
Sure.
Felix, can I excite you about a vision that just popped into my head, and I shared it a couple of times on the Twitch stream. But you go into the game, right, as a dark elf. You appear, and behind you is a dark purple portal, and there's other soldiers, other NPCs that are rushing out of there, dark elves. you're thinking that you're part of an invasion force, and and as you get further out, you begin to realize that the other soldiers are confused. They're not sure where the heck you are. The ground below you is green, and they haven't seen green ground in a long time. They're sure they're somewhere else, but they're not sure what's going on. And before you is these walls of these cities that's slowly being built. And so they think that they're part of an invasion force attacking somewhere, and slowly they begin to realize, oh, these are Dahl, and these are ogres, and we're together again with the Combine, which we haven't seen in like 500 years. And Karamor goes and, he's there, and he connects with some people that he hasn't seen in a long time. And so that's why the Dark Elves are in Kinos at the same time. They didn't arrive with Combine, but a portal opened up, and they finally got out of the Umbra, and that's how they got out.
See, I'd be okay with something like that, as long as the core nature of what they've spent all this time establishing with the lore ebooks, like, there's no point to have those if that isn't going to carry forward in some fashion. If that story isn't going to persist with your, character, and it needs to be something that, and the reason I brought it up is because it has to be something that's established in the gameplay, not just told to the players. It has to be something that we experience in day one. Even if we're all in Kinos, that's fine. It just has to be set up in such a way like you described, or other ways like that.
All of that is set up because what the devs have said is that, basically what Malachar just said is that the Tyrdal have newly escaped from the Umbra. They've arrived again on Antonica, but the elves haven't seen Dahl that look like that, and they don't particularly like that the Dahl look like that. And the elves themselves, all the races on Antonica Amaroth thought that the elves had been eradicated. They thought they were a dead race, and now these people are back. And
if only.
And the person leading the Combine is an elf that's saying, "Hey, we're taking back our territory." Now, I don't know that everybody on Antonica is going to be happy with the leader of the Combine moving people to, "Hey, we're back. We're reclaiming our space."
But that's conflict. That's great.
I
yeah, all that stuff is
comedically
there.
I comedically see this scene of like the elves from the Combine finally first meeting the Dark Elves and be like, "Hey, what's going on with you?" It's like, "Oh, we're the Tyrdal. Remember us?" It's like, "No, you don't look anything like us. What the hell's going on here?" And just this, the culture shock would immediately set in of the, elf Combine traditions and stuff versus the post-Tyrdal Dark Elf traditions. And just in that, there's going to be so much like them having to learn each other over again, basically.
So let me throw out another idea here. Yeah, go for it.
I was just going to say, no, go ahead. Guess power of veto.
Okay, so like Diggs is excited about everybody working together, right? And Neuro, you polled everybody, and all of us, small sample size, but still, we're like, we're gonna freaking leave the place. So here you've got this really big problem, because that's probably what's gonna happen, is that the game is gonna be trying to pull people together, and people are gonna be trying to leave, and that is the conflict. Is how do you resolve that conflict and prevent the warfare and the fighting of a people that have been united for a really long time, and for the first time they're faced with returning back to their homeland that they haven't seen in 500 years, and there's groups of ogres that want to go and rebuild Tosharak, and there's groups of people wanting to head in all these different directions, and you've got, as a player, have to deal with that.
Rallying call. You spend the first 3 months defending and building up Kinos, otherwise it's lost.
Yep.
But hopefully some servers won't care about that.
Yeah, what you were explaining is an interesting microcosm of the whole gameplay experience they're trying to achieve. They want to give players a newfound freedom, outside of a linear experience, and that's the microcosm right there. We all arrive in Kinos, and we're suddenly all free to do whatever we want. We can all leave, we can stay, we can, help, we can hurt, we can, do all these different things. It's, it is a great way to do it. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against a single starting city. I just want to make sure that the gameplay experience that they're aiming for happens. And part of this whole open development thing is to get the players involved and helping them reach that goal. So that's why I like to make sure the community's aware of these things and they're hashed out and talked, and we say a lot of dumb stuff and a lot of smart stuff, and everything is better because of it.
Do you think that in Landmark, I'm not even sure if this is possible, but do you think that Storybricks we could have enough control over Storybricks and have enough control over an idea of what to do, that we could be creating the initial quests? Because we think linearly. We're used to thinking linearly. So the first initial Storybrick stuff that we create, we'll be able to create it in EQ in Landmark, and they'll take those kind of quests or those ideas and simply put them over into some servers on the EQN servers. And have those as part of your initial.
My first Storybricks interaction that I want to build up is actually a multi-branching thing that can be completed a bunch of different ways. The terms of completion are different depending on what actions you take in the process, and you might not even complete it. You might lose and be locked out of being able to win that content. So if I could actually execute the very first thing, I wrote this like literally 6 months ago, it would basically be kind of one of the earlier examples of player execution of exactly that. Something that is not a linear, you start this and you either win or lose depending on if you beat the guy at the end or not, but having a lot more terms and consequences and a lot more things that can be the result of it. But obviously that would also mean it isn't just an isolated encounter. I would also have to build up all of the encounters and all of the things where it can go and how they interact. So that's starting to get to the point where I'm building my own game in Landmark, and depending on how far they let us go with that, it might get to the point where I need to recruit more talent and more help to actually build it up and turn it into something, starting with this one encounter and having it be the launching point for an entire adventure. Or if it's the sort of thing that I'll just have to kind of wrap up and, one way or another it's going to have an end point, just because I don't have the time and tools to make a full-on game in Landmark initially. Though they do, from the sound of it, Dave really wants us to be able to actually make our own full-on games. Dave and Jeff Butler also, same way, same enthusiasm for that in Landmark. The idea that we'll actually be able to make a full-on game, all the story elements and that sort of stuff. I would be happy even having semi-procedural, semi-generated quests like 3089, where you go to a quest hub and when you accept a quest, it generates the NPCs at that moment that you need to interact with to complete the quest.
I thought of a really interesting way to picture this whole, row song, Storybricks, AI questing system. Basically, you're in a like a hockey rink, basically, and the puck or the ping pong ball or what have you is your character. And basically, if the NPCs were all lined around all the walls, and they have set triggers where when the object hits them, they're going to act a certain way. When you interact with them, depending on your velocity or whatever, depending on your character set things, when you hit that, it's going to give you, a certain direction that you're going in. However, because of the dynamic nature of the game, there's all kinds of things moving around in the rink that could, intercept your path, cause you to deviate. This is kind of the way I picture this, new AI system working, where, you're still going to have these like linear type feeling things, but at any moment it can change. And the way the NPCs are designed is off of triggers, really, like depending on what your history is and your choices that are stored in your character file or however they do that, are going to affect the way an NPC treats you and, change your trajectory when they send you off, or what options they give you, is going to adjust your new trajectory. So it is, like a choose your own adventure in a way, but at the same time, you've also got that middle of the ring where you're, running into other things that happen to be on that trajectory and cause you to, gravitate towards or change your course. But anyways, it was just the thought I had while you guys were talking about that.
Let me, De Niro, what I was thinking in terms of initial player experience. and how that could be story bricked out in Landmark, and then we can bring it in. Here's a scenario that I'm going to try and build. You've got a line of boxes and obstacles that you have to jump over, right? And it's inside of this small little area, this small little fence. And all along the side are these NPC gamblers. And there's an NPC gambler that you walk over to the front, and he explains the whole thing. You have to get from one side to the other side as quickly as you possibly can. Okay, there are all sorts of obstacles for you to jump over, and basically it's a tutorial to learn how to move your character. And if you can finish it, he'll pay you something. He'll pay you some coin, so you get some initial coin. And then you can go back and do it again. And the more times that you do it, the more coin that you can earn. Well, players on the outside can actually bet that you will or won't beat the existing time. So it's actually a thing that existing veteran players can actually engage with. So it's not something that's, the newbie players are cut out. So the newbie players come in, and if you're actually going on your first time, you can make a lot of money just betting that guy. I mean, it's not a lot of money because you would exploit that, but it's a kind of a fun thing where you're engaging and exciting the new players and cheering them on and telling them what to do. And there's NPCs yelling at you saying, jump over this or run around that, duck duck that, press down, press back, press left. And so veteran players are engaging with new players because they want to excite those new players to, beat the competition, because if they do, then they'll win and they'll win money. So there's a way to engage existing players with newbie players and also reward both of them at the same time. And it remains a part of the world environment that's very dynamic, because those gamblers are making and losing money too. They have to react to that.
I could see the exact same thing being done in a crafting context. You're the master blacksmith, or you call yourself the master blacksmith, even though you're more of like a mid-apprentice level and you're trying to build up. And you tell people, hey, I'm a master blacksmith. You bring me this, this, and this, and I'll make something for you. And you make something, and it's something good. It's something better than they could get for the vendor for the amount of effort that they put out. But you're not a master, and they didn't get something mastercraft. So it's like, hey, so come back next time, bring me some more, and I'll make something even better. So they come back maybe in a week, they bring some more materials, and they get a better version or a different item of higher quality made from the same person. And that's basically, if you're positioned in such a way that people are just feeding you resources to make them better and better items to just send out to them, you can essentially be leveling up your crafting skill as basically a kind of preferred crafter in the area. As you do that more and more, you might have been maybe a few months ahead of everyone else that you were given the help to when you started. You do that for long enough, okay, now you've been doing that for a year. Now you are the master blacksmith in the area. You're actually, people will come from halfway across the continent just to have you make their weapons, just like people who do in Star Wars Galaxies. So that's the sort of thing I could see where newer players and veteran players could really interface in a very positive and very, synergistic way. Yeah. Felix, what do you think about that?
I will not talk anymore this episode. I have talked way too much. But we are getting closer to our end time, and I did want to have some Q&A. It's something we haven't got to do a whole lot of recently, and I kind of want to go back to that because we love our chat, and you guys have great questions. So we're going to just kind of kick off. I'm going to read some questions, and maybe we'll just pick one or two people that feel like answering it, and then we'll go on to the next one and see if we can get all these in before we get to the end of it. So we'll go with the first one. Stoneglade asks, if a player chose to be an enemy of Kinos, will there be enough content day one to enjoy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The entire rest of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Underground,
I think
too.
I think if you're an enemy of Kinos, then you go out and you have to find allies. So I think there's going to be plenty to do day one. You aren't going to necessarily be attacking Kinos on day one.
Yeah.
But
my real answer is it's going to take more than a day to become an enemy of Kinos. And if you do become an enemy of Kinos, chances are they'll throw your ass in jail rather than, hunting you and forcing you to a respawn point every time you come close to the walls.
I don't want to segue, but we will have to have some kind of conversation on crime and punishment. I don't I don't like the idea of throwing someone in jail. It's not a fun experience, but you will be punished. It's gonna be bad.
Apparently, that's the funniest part of ArcAge is the jury and trial system.
Yeah, as a social experiment, it's hilarious. As a game, it's really dumb.
Malachar has a design doc on that on EverQuest Next forum, so just go there. Or Euro, have him on live to rant so he can.
That sounds like a good idea.
But he's
I
got a
haven't-
design doc on that.
I have another fairly easy question for some of the guys here to answer. Mr. Poundsign asks, how do you prevent EverQuest Next from becoming the GeoCities of MMOs? Like, how does bad content owned by another user get removed?
Easily. They
Make
don't
sure that Landmark does it better.
don't give
Yeah.
us the tools to put bad content in EverQuest Next to begin with.
Yeah, EverQuest Next is not susceptible. Landmark already is the GeoCities of MMOs.
Yeah.
Here's
Hey,
a little
they
bit
got some
Fantasia.
awesome
It's
GeoCities sites
Fantasia.
that they got advertised all over the internet for other people to make GeoCities sites. You're gonna make the best GeoCities site. I told people what my GeoCities name was in high school. I'm sure somebody somewhere has the ability to look up some cached website that I made in high school that I don't even remember.
All right, here's
EQNext will not have the tools to do that. If it does, then we're not going to play. We'll play Landmark. If that's what EQNext is, we'll play Landmark.
the next question. Do we know if there's going to be a black market in Kinos?
Okay, can I throw down on this one?
Go for it.
Okay, so we've got constructible, destructible content. We've got story bricks, right? And possibly, in talking to Dave and in talking to some of the other devs, they want to have some kind of economy system. So I don't know what that's going to mean, but I figure, let's say that you have plots, right? You have plots that you earn the right to buy and that you pay regular recurring upkeep on in the city of Kinos, or it might be outside the city, but let's say that it's inside the city.
Land grants.
Land grants, thank you. I don't know where they'll be. They might not be in the city, but let's assume that they might be in the city, right? Players are notorious for forgetting to pay their rent, right? I'm bad at it. Everybody's bad at it. So what happens when you do that? So you pay for your upkeep, and you keep on playing, and then something comes up, and you stop playing for 2 weeks, and you lose your upkeep. Well, I think you should just board up the NPCs would just board up that home. And if they board up the home, somebody else could buy it if they want to buy it, or rent it, get the land grant, whatever. But if nobody comes over there, then in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, a squatter comes in. And if enough areas become like that, then you've got a lot of squatters. And if you got squatters, then you've got crime. If you got crime, then you get thugs. If you get thugs, you get a black market. You get all that stuff. The city starts to disintegrate into pieces, all because people forgot to pay their rent.
A black market implies that there's
game economies
contraband.
are so hard.
Well, that's the thing.
Game economies are so complex. Very few games have made anything that's even remotely fun or manipulable by a player in any realistic and not only negative way. Adding in this extra level of economy, there has to be just one way for things to work, and that doesn't mean global auction house. That's the wrong way, but some underlying level of economy. Trying to build a system to support that, I would rather they work on other aspects of gameplay. Make the primary economy good, and then let's move on. I'm sorry, I had to talk over there. I was just the idea just pisses me off. And if they try to make the economy so complex that there's some like underground black market, the rest of the gameplay is gonna suck.
So
yeah,
for me, it's just what actually would be in a black market. What is contraband? What is illegal? What couldn't you get or is being dealt in a way that isn't normally standard and allowed.
Body parts.
Okay, body parts. So you're a necromancer in town. That's a very, very niche sort of black market right there. It sounds like the sort of thing you go to the edge of town, not something in town itself. But it's one of those things that I could see them adding, maybe not necessarily black markets, but different types of different vendors that sell things in different ways, and maybe that's how they associate things with a nefarious area. That instead of the vendor who sells you an item straight up for face value, it's one of those, you highlight it, there's a question mark, you don't know what the stats are, you can spend 100 gold to buy it, it might be awesome, it might be crap, one of those sort of things. That to me would be the most nefarious sort of market I could see them doing. When I think of black markets in MMOs, though, I immediately think of gold sellers, not like an in-game mechanic. But that's a completely different subject.
I think that this could be an in-game mechanic without a ton of complexity. I think, because of the way the game is being designed, with resources being, the way that NPCs even operate, and people are going to be pursuing resources as well. So you have people and NPCs operating kind of on the same goals. Now, the way I think that a black market can work, and it's something that they briefly mentioned before about, when they were talking about day and night differences, at nighttime, you're going to have shady vendors come out and stuff like that. So what I would love to see, actually, is for the first time a game taking PvP, or the reputation system that should be tied into PvP as well, to create natural negatives to being a douche and KOSing people for no reason. But anyways, the whole reputation system, if that's tied into the economy as well, if you start establishing a bad reputation in a certain area, you can't buy from vendors. They're going to say, no, go away, I don't like you. And you have another set of vendors, or maybe they come out at night, or maybe they're in a bad part of town, or there's just some other thing, and that's technically the black market. But what it is, it's another dimension of the economy that operates on the same simple mechanics the day economy does. It's just tied to the reputation system. So now when you do things that change the way people perceive you, it affects who you can and cannot buy from. And I think that would be amazing. But that's just my own special wants and needs.
I won't buy this from you. I won't sell to you. Not here, not in public. Come to me later. I won't even talk with
Next question.
Fair enough.
All right. The next question: will Kinos be the only established city in the start of EQN? We already covered that one. That was Daniel the Jack. The next one, Zixidu. I always say that wrong. I'm not even going to go through it one more time.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. What is the first thing you really want to see / experience when you step into EverQuest next?
Cheese voxels.
I want to make a decision within the first 5 minutes of gameplay that affects me for life.
Wow.
Maybe not for life, but I want it to be one that I have to make up for if I do it wrong. I want to experience a life of consequences within the first 5 minutes of entering the game. I want there to be an option that is presented in a vague way in front of me, where I have a problem that I can solve in a variety of different ways, or I want to be able to choose to do something that matters to how I experience the rest of the world quickly.
Like in H1Z1, if you don't collect blackberries during the day, you die on the first night.
I will not play H1Z1 again, and I did play it SOE Live, but I will not buy into the game until I hear that zombies are the primary source of danger in the game, to the point where working together is required. I'm not interested in the PvP experience of a survival game. I want to be involved in a survival game that the environment is really the biggest threat. And I'm not sure that H1Z1's at the stage of development right now where it can be that for me. So I'm holding off. But that's an aside.
Oh, Baby Cannon, you're so funny. Yeah, Baby Cannon saw me stream my first night, and yeah. Anyways, that was the last question that I saw that was collected and posted into our Skype chat here. So, and we are running right into 7 o'clock. So I think we're gonna start wrapping it up. We're gonna go through our normal kind of thing here, but first I do want to thank everybody that's come to watch, and especially our chat slags, as Locke would call them. Thank you, Noodle, Viz Gaming, and Phantom X as well. I think we have almost all of our other actual normal cast members in today. Other than Poro, I don't know if you guys saw Poro in there or not.
She's lurking.
I wasn't watching.
Poro's lurking.
Yeah, so everybody is here, all 8 members. So thank you guys for keeping the chat moving, and thanks everybody for coming to watch. We'll kind of do a round robin here for everybody that's on, and you can talk about what you have coming up, or some things maybe you're working on, some stuff you want to create awareness about, and we will start with our evil guest, Malakar.
Oh God. Oh no. What am I working on? Okay, so I'm on the forums on everything, but
don't answer
major
that.
projects.
We don't want to know what you're working on.
Yeah, no, but major projects right now. Working on new death mechanic, trying to think of a different way of handling it so that it can solve some of the emotional issues that really good Storybricks characters are going to have. Working on a different kind of economy system in the back end. So if any you economists are out there, or anybody with real business experience who knows how to use Excel and other systems, please send me a message on the Landmark forums. I'm actually running numbers on this stuff. And if there are any physicists or scientists or astronomers, I'm also working on a space system for time and everything else. So want to be presenting those hopefully soon to the developers, but I need help. I just shut everybody up.
You're
No, we're just
I was
on
scared of
turn
what you were going to
next.
talk about, because I know you have these crazy. Like I've seen his calendar that he was working on. He sent to me an email, and like I can hardly. It's crazy. So yeah, I had a feeling you had some big projects that are scary, and awesome.
Let me just put it this way. It is the physics that I have make it entirely possible for dragons to fly without magic. With magic, oh my god.
Nice.
I really like sandwiches.
Indeed.
Sandwiches are good. I'm gonna eat one
sandwiches,
soon.
I like
Jimmy
them.
John's.
Diggs, what's going on?
Let's see. I'm playing Landmark. I played a little bit of PlanetSide and Neverwinter Online yesterday to get a handle on what's up with the crazy combat. I'll have to mention that to you guys. I think there's a problem with the Forge Light engine and third-person combat in both H1Z1 and in Landmark, and that's why the Landmark controls feel so clunky. But what else? Playing a little Landmark, having fun with PvE. I'll have to think about building something for Kinos. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. I'm in the forums, of course, and on Twitter.
Very cool. I am, of course, you're on my channel here, so I don't need to advertise too much, but I do need to advertise the next episode of Content and Creations coming after Landmark Live is going to be a very special episode. It is the 1-year anniversary. So definitely check in, watch the very first episode on my YouTube channel, get an idea of where it all started, because we're going to be talking about a little bit of that and seeing what all features from the first episode have actually gotten into Landmark so far, and what things are actually proposed and what things are just my harebrained enthusiasm for Voxel Sandbox World. So that should be a lot of fun. Got a couple Trailblazers, got a couple of the 2500 Station Cash cards, so bring your friends. It should be a lot of fun. And other things, Content and Creations, 1 to 5 p.m. Pacific time on Sundays, followed by the Evercast show. Live feature rant, well, I just talked about that. Dead feature rant on Tuesdays, 3:30 to 5:30 Pacific if you're into zombies.
Ads.
Is it my turn?
Yep.
Most of you guys know I've been doing a whole lot of studying recently. I'm basically learning to be a full-fledged Java programmer, and I'm at the point now where I have most of the pieces together. I'm building a high-level Twitch channel analytics program, because if you're a Twitch streamer, you don't really have any good performance metrics available to you, or any good information to suggest what you should do next. Having spent quite a bit of time streaming on Twitch and understanding the game and how all of that is played, I feel like I've got a little bit of insight into what kind of information I would have liked to have, and that will be available not to any of you. Well,
Well, thanks.
I'm still putting it together. It's going to take me a few more weeks to finish up the basic prototypes without a workable UI or anything, just the back end. But basically, I'm programming stuff on computers that mostly back end stuff and not pretty stuff, and that is exactly what where I come from this. Everything that I've done with Landmark and moving forward, that I'm not that interested in the pretty parts. I'm interested in the mechanical parts, and I love talking about them, and I have lots of opinions about them. I'm Sog. I have opinions. Have a great night.
See, and that's why I get along so well with Sog. I love the core mechanics, but the artist inside me also too wants to try and marry this, these awesome mechanics to something pretty and beautiful on the outside, or ugly, beautiful and ugly, as long as it gets a rise. Anyway, you all know me. I'm writing for 10 Ton Hammer now. I have a column regularly two days a week there. I usually do. Still pushing content on EQ Hammer. I did a few things there these past couple weeks, so there's still stuff there. Other than that, I have been dabbling in streaming a little bit, believe it or not. It's been a laughable experience, to say the least. I've had my share of fails, but I'm having a good time. I really like it, and it's not something I'll be doing like full time or anything like that, but I definitely want to, even after I get done streaming H1Z1 for 10 Ton Hammer over the next couple weeks, I'm planning to branch off and do a little bit of my own streaming and trying out some stuff, probably around other people's shows. I don't like to cut off all our other hosts here, and my schedule's really flexible, so I'm going to try to just dabble in some things around the outside, play some games that I'm interested in, maybe even some old emulated games. So if you guys want to come watch me laugh at me and fail as I fail horribly bad, I'll be doing some of that. But I am doing H1Z1 right now from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific on all the weekdays, so that's kind of the little window that I jump in stuff. You can pop in if nobody else here is doing something. Definitely go watch their shows if there is something, because I'm just going to be dying to zombies and AOS douche players. But I will end it at that. Thank you guys all for coming. We will be back here again 5:30 p.m. next week as usual. And I believe next week we're going to be on a different channel. I'm not sure who, because our two regular hosts, Neuro and Geo, I believe are scheduled off.
No,
so we're gonna.
I'll be there. That was actually this week that I was going to be going to Global Game Jam, but work kind of worked its way out that I stayed around, so I was here for today. Hey.
Okay, so it may be back here on this very channel again next week. But anyways, thank you guys all for coming, and we will keep you informed. Follow our Twitters and stuff, and you will know where it is next week. So catch you guys later. Thank you.
All right. See y'all later. Have a good one.